When you want a better career or a happier life, you probably start by asking a perfectly logical question. What should I do to get there? You make a list of the right moves, build a strategy, and try to orchestrate a win. The problem is that attacking life forward means relying on addition, and adding things, new habits, new features, new rules, is messy. Every single thing you bolt onto your life introduces side effects you can't predict. We keep doing it because human biology comes installed with a bug, optimism bias. Planning for the best-case scenario flatters our egos. It tricks us into assuming that if we just execute our plan, everything will snap perfectly into place. Building a purely additive strategy doesn't actually guarantee a win. It just acts as a blindfold, hiding the actual risks of whatever you are trying to build until it's too late. Picturing that perfect outcome feels incredibly good, and feeling good is exactly the issue. That rush of optimism neurologically switches off the cautious, danger-hunting part of your brain right when you need it most. The Nobel-winning psychologist Daniel Kahneman spent decades studying how our minds trip over themselves. He proved repeatedly that humans run on overconfidence by default. We naturally assume our timeline is realistic and our project is the exception, even when the data proves otherwise. The cruelest twist in Kahneman's research is who this affects the most. The people who are the most confident are usually the least skilled. They are perfectly sure they are right simply because they lack the knowledge to see what they are missing. From the inside, confidence feels identical to competence. So when you only push forward, assuming your abilities will save you, you walk straight into a loop of predictable, self-inflicted failures. There is a mechanical fix for this. When a problem looks like an impenetrable fortress from the front, you stop pushing. You take the entire scenario and you restate it backward. This was the standard operating procedure of a mathematician in the 1800s named Carl Jacob Jacobi. Whenever an equation refused to crack, he flipped it around and started from the other end. He left behind a single, highly effective instruction: invert. Always invert. That mathematical trick didn't stay in academia. The legendary investor Charlie Munger took the exact same principle and applied it to the chaos of money, business, and daily life. Munger arrived at a beautifully blunt conclusion. You don't need to be a genius to win. Avoiding stupidity is vastly easier and more reliable than trying to summon rare, unpredictable brilliance. Shifting your focus from a forward quest for genius to a backward hunt for idiocy snaps you out of your daydream. It forces a confident mind to argue against itself, breaking the spell of optimism bias. Let's test this on a real target, like trying to get more innovation from a corporate team. Instead of asking how to encourage ideas, invert it. What policies guarantee every new idea gets crushed? You write a disaster list, punish failure, bury people in endless processes, reward boring work. Honestly, your organization is probably unknowingly committing these fatal errors right now. You can formalize this with a meeting protocol called a premortem. Before you start a project, you gather your team and tell them to imagine it is exactly 1 year in the future. The project hasn't just struggled, it has completely and definitively failed. Now, everyone writes down why. This chart shows the statistical advantage of a psychological effect called prospective hindsight. Treating failure as a historical fact rather than a possibility removes polite filters. Your team's ability to identify reasons for a future collapse jumps by roughly 30%. A premortem gives your skepticism a job. It takes that cautious, worried part of your brain and turns it into an elite investigator. There is a hard line between useless negativity and useful negativity. Useless negativity sits paralyzed, stewing in dread. Useful negativity, what psychologists call defensive pessimism, takes that exact same dread and turns it into an actionable checklist. Inversion works through subtraction. Instead of bolting on clever new ideas that might backfire, you ask what to remove. Removing a known harm is the cleanest, safest move you can make in a complex system. Munger trusted this subtractive strategy with billions of dollars. He didn't build his fortune by constantly gambling on the perfect additive stock pick. He built it by ruthlessly removing obvious self-inflicted mistakes, like taking on bad debt or trading on emotion. If you systematically identify your fatal errors and close every door you know leads off a cliff, winning eventually becomes a mathematical byproduct. Inversion also provides a distinct psychological clarity. Typical goals like wanting to be happy or successful are too vague to navigate. You can't steer toward fog. But the moment you start listing exactly what you refuse to tolerate, constant debt, a job that drains you, friendships you let rot, the picture immediately snaps into focus. The negative defines the edges of the positive. By sketching the boundaries of the disaster, you accidentally trace the exact outline of the life you actually want to live. So before you chase your next big win, write down a brutal, honest list of every single way you could guarantee a total loss. And then, quite simply, refuse to execute those actions. You don't have to be brilliant. You often just need to stop walking, eyes open, toward the cliffs you can already see.